Hello again, book lovers. This is A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. The title, of course, being ironic, as this was a woman who, despite being conspicuously tall and American and having an artificial leg named Cuthbert, as she managed to injure herself in a hunting accident, went on to organise a lot of pockets of the French resistance to the Nazis. And that's the bulk of the story. And that is the story, and I'll let you read the story. It even has a happy ending. And I've said before, I'm not going to give my comments on any books that I don't think are worth reading. I have read entire books and thought, no, I'm not going to talk about that. This one, I would say, yeah, okay, for the story. I may be being too finicky here. I'm always complaining about too much detail or there's too little detail. And in the end of these kinds of war books, you do get quite a lot of litanies of names and titles and honours and medals and things like that. None of which would impress this particular woman, who was called Virginia Hall, although none of them knew that at the time. She was the Madonna of the Mountains, and an incredibly brave woman she was. So what are my reserves about this book? Well, yes, there's action in it, and once again we have to rely on the Nazis and their horrible tortures to perk things up, because that is the big question in the background. Why did these people risk so much? I mean, they would literally be tortured to death in a lot of cases if they were caught. In any case, having read all that and got a good idea of what she did and how she lugged this prosthetic limb over the Pyrenees and various other adventures, I still don't have a sense of what it would be like to be in the room with her and talk to her. This was something I found about the lengthy Churchill biography that I read that managed to omit any after-dinner tales or anecdotes, let's say, or witty speeches in the house. There are very, very precious few comments from Virginia Hall herself, and although we get a lot of tributes to her bravery and resilience, not a lot of flavour as to what she was actually like. What you do get in this book is, just in case, you never know, it might happen again, how to be a spy, how to infiltrate down to the last little detail of the threads with which the buttons are sewn on and what's printed on the back side of the buttons and all that kind of thing. A little bit like the scene in Inglourious Bastards where they give themselves away. There are mouthy characters who do actually give people away. There's an atmosphere, obviously, of intense distrust, but also of intense loyalty when the machine gets going. And that's another strange thing about this kind of memoir, that the protagonists often talk about the most dangerous and toughest, most difficult parts of their lives as the part when they were most alive, when they felt energised and with some kind of a purpose. As Virginia is a woman, there is the trope of how this hindered her at the various stages of her career, the usual nitpicking men who don't believe a woman could do the job, how she had to fight, or at least other people on her behalf, to get her recognition after the war. Not that she would have been particularly interested in that. And that doesn't have to be mentioned quite as much as it is. An insight that I got from this book, well, us Brits were always fond of talking about the Italians and the French being cowardly in their resistance to the Germans. This book will tell a lot of stories that give the lie to that, of course. Ultra brave resistance fighters risking it all and very often losing it all. And, at the end of the day, the Johnny-come-latelys who hop along and say, yes, I've been in the resistance from the beginning. The traitors, the turncoats, and the reprisals against the poor prostitutes, who were Virginia's first point of contact in trying to get up a network of informants. The prostitutes, because of course they were seen as the people who had given succour to the invaders, were paraded through the town, spat at, stoned, tarred and feathered, the usual stuff. How many of those people knew what those prostitutes had in fact done by way of deliberately infecting the Germans with diseases to put them out of action, and of course relaying information at a very early and crucial point in the resistance? The usual story of forgotten heroes and stolen valour. It says on the back, the never before told story, so if you want to read the story, this is the place to get it. As I say, though, at the end of the day, I didn't feel that Ms. Hall was that much closer to me.